This is a really fun time of year. It's all about giving. We're coming into what we call the holiday season. It's about thanks and gratitude and giving. And we put those words together in various ways throughout the season. I want to offer one of the symbols that I remember well from my childhood that I want to use as a metaphor for the prosperity that we receive. And that, I hope you can all see it. Here in front of me is something called a cornucopia. Cornucopia actually means horn of plenty. And it actually originated as, it was a goat's horn that was used, and it comes from a myth about Zeus and how he was fed as a child and the gifts he gave back. But I looked it up in Merriam-Webster dictionary, and there is the name for the shape itself, but there's also the word cornucopia, and I love this. Right out of a regular old dictionary, it means an inexhaustible store, abundance. And they actually have abundance written in all caps. Some of the synonyms for cornucopia: abundance, feast, plenitude, plenty, plethora, superabundance, wealth. What a wonderful idea about prosperity and abundance. Now, the tie-in here is pretty obvious, and you can put most anything in there. And I thought about going and getting some apples and oranges and grapes and things, because I got to admit that plastic pumpkins and gourds are not all that appetizing to me. But but my table is kind of small. But the representation here is about the harvest and what comes after we've taken that time to till the soil and plant the seeds and tend and water and do our prayer work. Off altogether. And do the prayer work that the temperature is going to be right and the rain is going to be right and that we're going to have that abundant harvest that we need. And we've had festivals throughout all of the ages about this, celebrating. We have plenty. It's come in. All of our work is paid off, and we have what we need to go through the fallow time and in through the next season as things grow. Because you know what's there, it is not only the current fruit, but also the seeds of the future are coming in. I think about the biblical story about Joseph running Pharaoh's stores. And Pharaoh had this dream, and he had the 7 years of good harvest and then the 7 years of famine, and Joseph explained that to him and then ran everything for him, so that indeed when the famine came, there would be stores. And I reread that story as I was preparing for this, and Joseph actually also figured out a way to make that a pretty profitable idea. Good for him. But that was an earthly kind of government that we were talking about. In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes says, we must learn to come under the divine government. The divine government. And accept the fact that nature's table is ever filled. Never was there a cosmic famine. Never was there a cosmic famine. Never is there a time when the things we need are not available to us from God. One of the things I like about the shape of this is I think of it as this little point. It's like that spot where if God gets even the tiniest opening, if we give any opening at all, that potential rushes in and it quickly magnifies into all that we can handle. There's kind of this mysterious place in the middle here, the creative medium. So once the seed gets planted, it goes through this process and outpours all that we need, overflowing. And so I love the symbology of the shape itself for how our abundance works and how flow works. Reverend Catherine did that reading this morning, and it talked about flow. It talked about flow, and this is part of how flow occurs. And again, it's not just the immediate need, but it's also the seeds of what we need into the future. Now, as that abundance comes spilling out, sometimes things happen to us. We see things we want. And we start thinking about limitation. Even though it's sitting right in front of us, has come to us as we've needed it, we sometimes start thinking in terms of limitation. And then we start thinking, this pie only is so big, there's only so much stuff here. We forget the magic of how it appeared there in the first place, and we think there's only this much. And if I want mine, I need to take some of somebody else's. I need to hoard it. I need to stuff it away. And that's why the problem with the Joseph story is they did store things away, but wisely. They didn't keep themselves from having what they needed in the moment. They were just thinking ahead. So don't mistake that idea of having to clutch on. Another thing from Ernest Holmes, God wills us to have everything. As we express life, we fulfill God's law of abundance, but we do this only as we realize that there is good enough to go around. We can't get caught up in this idea of limitation. Only as we realize that there's good enough to go around, only as we know that all of God's gifts are given us freely and fully as the air and the sunshine alike to all. We're not being withheld from. If we withhold, we're breaking the chain in the way it's supposed to work. But that's not always our strongest suit. This is a world of boundaries. We get caught up in that idea of boundaries, don't we? We came in to experience time and space. I talk about this sometimes as the course that we're taking when we come to planet Earth. We're taking Time and Space 101. And it's all about boundaries. It's very hard for us to think in terms of eternity, infinite, because we're used to seeing ends to things and walls and defined spaces. So it's difficult for us to think and get rid of that idea of limitation. But damming up the flow is never good for us in the long run. You know, our textbook is a wonderful creation, but there are a lot of tiny little books from Ernest Holmes, and they are just chock full of wonderful ideas. And I had a quote that I wanted to read, and here's what happened. I opened it up, and I found my quote, and I thought, well, that's so cool. So I read back a little, and I thought, well, that's really cool. So you were about to get the whole book. I decided I would at least only go back to the most recent header to the thing. But this is a book called Creative Mind and Success, and you may not recognize it in my cover because this is a really old one. But some of you would have received this when you became members. It's one of the books that we give as gifts at our new member ceremonies. So, long time gone. There is no reason why a person should ever stop. This does not mean that we should be miserly, trying to accumulate more and more to hold, but that our thought should so enlarge that it cannot help gathering more and more. Even though, on the other hand, and I like this image, or with the other hand, we are ever distributing that which we gather. So we should never stop gathering. We should never stop seeking that we love and enjoy and that adds to our life and that makes things more beautiful and joyous and gives us the opportunity to give and feel good about what we're doing. But at the same time, we got to be handing it out or we're damming the flow. You know, our pond can hold what it can hold. We have to let it flow through. Indeed, the only reason for having is that we may give out that which we have. No matter what big thing happens to us, we should still be expecting more and more. And I got to tell you, when I go looking for stories about abundance, it's often, or gratitude, it's often about that idea of being grateful for what you've got, and then you'll have enough. It's those things you don't have and get upset about that make you feel that you're living in lack. And that's true, to appreciate what we have. But it doesn't mean that we can't have more and more, right? And I think we get stuck sometimes in that idea that we've got to be grateful for this, and being grateful for it means that's all we get. That's not the way the system works. The system works that as you are grateful and you receive and you give, more comes. I think I titled the talk, There's More Where That Came From. No matter what we get, there's always more where that came from, because this is always receiving that input, going through that making process and spilling forth the good. Even when we think that we have at last arrived, right at the moment when it seems as though life had given us all that we could stand, right here, let it be but a beginning for still greater things. And that's where I want to bring up that idea again of, as along with the thing itself is the seed. You know, like when we talk about the acorn, not only is the entire oak tree there, but the entire forest is there. Because in that individual acorn is the oak that produces more acorns that produce more oaks. And so in that one tiny thing, involute in that is a whole forest. So when we collect our harvest of good now, we are also collecting the seeds that move forward and increase. No matter how large the picture that you hold in mind, make it larger. No matter how your mic is working, make it more astonishing. The reason why so many people come to the point where they stop is that they come to a point where they stop growing in their own minds. They come to a point where they can see no more, thinking that because they have really done a big thing, they should stop there. We must watch our thought for signs of inactivity. Nothing in the universe ever stops. You ever thought about that? Even galaxies, they're moving, right? We had the Big Bang and everything is still in motion. Nothing in the universe ever stops. Atoms don't ever stop spinning. Everything stays in motion constantly. Everything is built on a boundless basis, drawn from a limitless source, come forth from an infinite sea of unmanifest life. We speak forth into this life and draw back from it all that we first think into it. Life is always limitless, and the only thing that limits us is our inability to conceive mentally, and we should draw more and more from that limitless source. There are a lot of techniques for how we move our thoughts, and we are going to play with one of those as a group today and this month, and it's called unexpected income. So I'm kind of moving into to this program that we're offering. Before we hand things out, well, no, actually, let's hand things out. Where did Les? I'm gonna make you work today, dude. Jenny, would you help maybe in the red box? If you guys would just split those sheets and make sure everybody in the room gets one of those sheets with one of those little envelopes. We had a discussion recently. It was not our group, of course, but somebody was bemoaning every time we walked into the church. They asked for money. Well, good news, we're giving it out today. A little shift on what you're used to. So what you're going to find in your envelope is $1 of income you didn't know you were going to get. That is unexpected income. Now, unexpected income doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't due to you in some way. Let me give you an example. The minister at the church that I attended way back years ago in Houston was also an artist, and he had these 3 pictures that I just loved, and I wanted them. And so I finally made a deal with him, and I purchased the 3 pictures. I think they were $55 a piece or something, $165. I went home that day. I lived in a townhouse complex, and the mail came at a building off over there somewhere. And so I only checked my mail when I was really in the mood to deal with my mail. And so I went over that day. It was a Sunday and seemed like a good afternoon to, slit open a week or so's worth and go through it. And in there was a check. I had left a company for a new job. I had not really been more than vaguely aware that they had put me into a profit sharing program, or that because I left, they would need to pay me out my profit sharing. They had only started it the year before, so I think it was like $180. But to me, it was unexpected. I had no plan whatsoever for that $180 to appear in my life, and there it was. That's unexpected income. It doesn't mean it wasn't due to me, but it certainly wasn't in my plans or expectations. And it was enough to pay for the pictures. I just decided, even if he wants that much money, I got to have those pictures. That was a lot for pictures for me at that time in life. So that's unexpected income. What we would like to propose, there's another idea here of tithing. And we did have a discussion within these walls about tithing just recently. We don't talk about that a lot. We don't talk about, how big it has to be. We don't tell anybody we got to check your tax returns and make sure you're giving us a certain amount of money. Prosperity is in our own thoughts, and what we give here, this church is abundant. We're fine. What we give here is got to come from our own sense of abundance. But there is a concept called tithing that we do teach in some of our work. And what I did was I not only gave you the dollar, I gave you the dime to tithe on the dollar. And I gave you the penny to tithe on that dime I gave you. So, you're all square, but for 1/10 of 1 cent. I think we're good, okay? So I do expect to see a whole lot of dimes and pennies show up in our collection today, because all of you are going to experience tithing on the unexpected income you gave. And the way this program works, there's a sheet there, and there's an affirmation on that sheet that is the same affirmation. Oh, this is going to work out beautifully. That is on the little envelope, squeezed up real small. So if you can't read the itty-bitty print on the envelope, it's bigger on your page. The idea is, if you choose, you can sign up for unexpected income. On the back side, there's actually a little form. And what you are doing, and that's this bowl right here, at any point today, you say, yeah, I want to be part of this, and I want the practitioners and the ministers to pray, and we're praying for each other. And you stick that in there, and all you're saying you'll do is, if unexpected income comes your way this month, you'll tithe on that. 10%. And experience what it's like without having to dip into anything else, although, of course, you're welcome to give all you want. What it's like to actually do that 10% thing on that. And we would like to hear your stories as the month goes on. Les, you told me about this. You said Elsie used to do this every year. Do you have a story from way back when, by any chance, of an experience with unexpected income during one of these programs? I'm putting you on the spot today. Sorry, man.
I've seen this over and over again, and it's pretty sad. Tom, you were here, you most of that. Every year, it's not November, we would do this program. And it was just amazing. We have a big glass bowl up here, and every Sunday people would come in and tell the most ridiculous stories of unexpected money that came into their life. There was one guy that I remember got his tax return. He was in cycle for 5 years, and he wanted to tell about that. And that's what he was thinking. Because he didn't expect to see him in the tax. This is my money that comes as a complete surprise. He did not anticipate.
Thank you. So how does this fit into the idea of what we're talking about, abundance? Because I want to do the program, but I want to talk about more than that. The idea is for this to help open you to that concept even more. Unexpected, wonderful things coming into your life. It's $1 today. There's a whole other concept called seed money, where you take money and you seed something. You could use this dollar as seed money as well, where you seed it out into the world to come back to you tenfold. So whatever you wish to do, the unexpected income is just it's an opportunity to expand your thinking about what can come your way. Let's see, is there anything else you need to know? Huh? Do you? We're starting early. day. Okay, so all you do, also there is this affirmation that you do twice a day. And you're including everybody. So the prayer team is going to share the names that you put in the bowl. Everybody else is basically praying for each other through the process of doing this affirmation on a daily basis, okay? Because you're including in there, I bless all the good that is with me now, and I bless the increase. I bless all the others in Orlando CSL's Unexpected Income Program. So we are blessing each other all through the process as well. So that's the Unexpected Income Program. And back to the idea of abundance, because this is fun. It's a game we can play and a learning lesson, hopefully, because something wonderful is going to come of this. But all the time, not just this time of year, we don't harvest. We're not an agrarian economy anymore. We don't just harvest at the harvest season. We harvest all the time. And Peggy talked about the perpetual harvest. We are perpetually harvesting the result of what we're thinking. Think of being totally contained by the good that God has. Totally contained in that which provides all, loves completely and totally. Being in the flow of all there is. Taking from it all that you desire, and at the same time, as he said, with the other hand, giving out, because you have so much. That is the prosperity consciousness we teach here. Not a percentage, although we're going to do that with this unexpected income, because there is a lot of literature and experience out there that says there's something about that percent. And did you tell me when you're feeling like there's any kind of lack, you go to 11? Was that you? Oh, somebody told me if they get even the thought of lack, they jump up to 11%, and because that always fixes everything. An interesting idea, but the idea, the prosperity we teach here, is that we know where we reside in the good. And from that idea and the fact that we are actively receiving it, we give comfortably. That's what we desire here. Okay. Are any questions about the program? Yeah. I don't know whether people have taken time to fill that out. So let's just, when you get a chance, we'll take that at the same time we do the other basket. Okay.